the class children. So today's topic is Introduction to Biotechnology Part 1. So you must have seen the buildings which are being constructed. They have to have a framework first. On that then the bricks are being built up, and then the wall of the floors arise and the entire building is set up. So for that each brick has to be set in a particular way so that the structure of the building is eventually set up and you get the desired structure. Similarly, a letter would form a word then would form a sentence, and then only it would make a sense. So for this, that means this both images say that initially it has to be in the smaller part, and then when things come together they become the bigger version of that particular thing which you need accordingly. The main motive of me of telling you all this is that our body is also made up of small cells, that are tiny cells which come together, and we are as organisms being formed. But these cells, how they come together? Not any type of cells would come together, but this group of cells which perform the similar function would come together. Okay, so group of cells, when they come together which perform the similar function, they would form the tissues. Then the tissues which perform the similar function will form the particular organ, and the organs together, the different organs will form an organ system, and the organ system would then form the organism. The same thing goes for the plants. The cells would come to group of cells which perform the similar function. Okay, that word is very important, that which perform the similar function would come together and form that particular tissues. Tissues will form organ would form organ system, and that organ system as a whole would form the organism. Why this is required? Because we are multicellular organisms. Okay, we are multicellular organisms. Even the plants are multicellular organisms. Multi means many cells. Okay, multicellular organisms. So they have different functions to be, or the different processes to be they are taking place. For example, a circulatory system, your excretory system, your digestive system. So for performing all these various processes, we need to have the different organs. Okay, for that is why our cells are being accordingly made up of, so that the group of cells, they come together which have the similar function would come together and form the organ, and similarly the entire organ system is made up of. In case if I am talking about only unicellular organisms, uni means one. For example, that is amoeba. As it is made up of only one single cell, all the functions of the amoeba are being performed by that single cell. But right now we are going to study about the multicellular. That means multicellular organisms which have many cells. But this chapter will deal about, which is going to be we are going to study about more of the animal tissues. Okay, we are going to study about the animal tissues. So this hierarchy is very important, which says that cells which come together performing the similar functions as tissues come together form organ, and organs which come together form organ system, and obviously after that we require the organism is being built up. So all these functions of the body, this occur with full efficiency. Why? Due to the specific organization of cells and their division of work. So heart will perform its function of circulating, digestive system will perform the working of digesting the food. So every organ will have a specific function, and accordingly they are placed in our body. Then, as I said, we are going to study about the tissues. So animal tissues and plant tissues. So two types of tissues are there. Types of tissues: simple tissue and complex tissue. Simple tissue, as the name says, made up of only one type of cells. For example, they have given epithelial tissue of animals and the meristematic tissue of plants. I'll just give a small the brief idea about what is epithelial and meristematic, because in the latter part of the chapter we are going to study them in detail. Epithelial is the covering in the animal body which helps in protection, and meristematic tissue is a tissue which helps in dividing. These tissues are present on the parts of the plant where the dividing of the cells occur, so the plant would grow. Then we have complex tissues made up of made up of more than one type of the cells. Example, blood of animals. because we don't have only in blood of animals, rather the composition is, we have RBCs, we have WBCs, so different types of tissues, and xylem and phloem of plants. In that we have xylem fiber, xylem parenchyma, and phloem. These are conducting tissues, that means they help in transport of food and water. Okay, so two types of tissues, simple and complex tissues. Now, are the structure and functions of the bodies of plants and animals the same? So depending upon what they do, the the structure of the plant and animals would be different. Now plants are sedentary. Sedentary means they are at one place. It won't happen that when you are going walking down the road, that particular tree is there. Okay, after the next day when you go, the tree would not be there, it would be supposed at some other place. It won't happen like that. So that means plants are sedentary, that they are at the same place forever, where they are being sown the seed and the plant starts growing. So plants are sedentary, so most of the tissues are the type that gives support, because they have to withstand all the calamities, or withstand all the calamities, as in the wind, high wind, the rainfall, scorching sun. So there are some dead cells in some tissues which does not require much attention, and that becomes hard. For example, the bark of the tree. So growth of the plants occurs in specific parts where the tissue contains the dividing cells. So wherever the tip of the plant, suppose the tree would grow bigger and bigger, so the meristematic tissues, as I said in the previous slide, would be present at those places only where the dividing of the cells would require, so that the plant has to grow in that particular part. Whereas in animals, animals have to move from place to place, so their energy requirement is more. They have to move from place to place for food, for shelter, and for their partners, so they require more energy. So they have an uniform growth. Uniform means as the plant keeps on growing, the we as human beings don't grow. We grow only till a particular age. So they have an uniform growth, so they do not have dividing and non-dividing types of tissues. So this shows that the structure and the function of the bodies of plants and animals is not the same, because plants are sedentary and they do not require much to move. So most of the tissues give support, whereas animals, they require more energy, so because they have to move from place to place. Now animal tissues. Now we can see this. For example, types of animal tissues they have given. They are muscular tissues. So wherever the tissues are being present, their structure and the function would be accordingly. That is what we are going to study. Muscular tissue, as the name says, muscles. Connective tissue means there will be connection between certain things, so that if for example, if I have to give, the muscles and the bones are being attached together. Otherwise, when you're moving the hand, the muscles will be somewhere else and the bones will be somewhere else. So for that, their connective tissue has to be required. Then nervous tissue, your nervous coordination, that I'm talking to you, I'm not talking something else regarding the environment right now, but right now I'm discussing about the animal tissues. So that means there is a coordination between my brain and my mouth, that I'm speaking the correct words. And the epithelial tissue, as I said, it is the covering. So these are the four tissues which we need to concentrate and study in regards to animal tissues. Why? Because they perform the particular functions. As I said, different tissues would form different functions, and accordingly they are being classified. Blood is also a type of connective tissue. Obviously, there is a connection, no, because it has to send the oxygen and the nutrients throughout the body. So it circulates in our body from one part to another and transports the different materials. For example, it transports oxygen and nutrients to all the cells in the body. Similarly, it also transports the waste material generated all over the body to the kidney for excretion. So blood is also a type of connective tissue. The first type of tissue which we need to learn is epithelial tissue. It is the protective coverings in the animal body which are called as epithelial tissues. Cells in this tissue are closely packed and form the continuous layer. So they are in layers. They are closely packed because they are kind of having a good protection from the outside. Any material that enters the body first encounters this epithelial tissue. Why? Because it serves as a covering. They are separated from the cells of the others by a fibrous membrane. So see where all they are present. they are present at the air sacs of the lung because it requires a protection. They are present at the respiratory tract, they are present in the kidneys, they are present in the intestine, and they are present in the esophagus. So depending upon where they are present, also there are different types of epithelial tissues, but right now we need not learn about them in detail. So understood, epithelial tissue is the protective covering in the animal bodies, and the cells in this type are closely packed and they form the continuous layer. And what are the functions? The functions are for obviously the protection, because they form the first part of the skin, for example. Then the next is squamous epithelium. The structure, you can see they are thin, they are small flat cells which form the, this is forms, okay, this forms the semi-permeable membrane. When I said semi-permeable membrane, means it does not allow all the materials to pass through it, but only allows the selective which are useful for the body to pass through it. So that is why they are called as semi-permeable membrane. So see the structure, they are thin, they are small, and they are flat cells. Location, they are present in the inner surface of the mouth. They are present in the esophagus, that is your food pipe, blood vessels, and your alveolar. So depending upon the structure and the function, location, what would be the function? Because they are semi-permeable membrane, they are selective transport of substances which takes place. So only which are required by the body, only that those transport of substances would be allowed for this squamous epithelium. That is the function of it. Okay. Esophagus, the food pipe. And so other than the food, the other bacteria would not be allowed to pass through it. That is the example. Next is your stratified epithelium. Stratified means layers. Okay, so structure many layers of the skin. How it is? It is the many layers of cells, rather. I'm sorry, it is many layers of cells. Stratified, the meaning only of stratified is layers. So structure, how it is? You can see many layers of the cells. Where it is present? Outer layer of the skin. Now you must have heard that our skin sheds, but we cannot see it. The dead cells worn out. That is why we have to have bath every day. So imagine, only if it has single layer of this, the skin, that is squamous epithelium, if it suppose has, so every time the skin would be exposed, no? So that is why stratified epithelium is present, so that it has many layers. So location, it is the outer layer of the skin. What are the functions then? Preventions of wearing of organs. As I said, this, for example, the skin has wear and tear, it takes place, no? The skin, the dead cells come out, again new cells come in. And the protection of organs, because it is forming the outer layer of it, so it gives a protection to the organs as well. So till now we studied about the squamous epithelium and stratified epithelium. Then we have glandular epithelium. Again, glandular, as the name says, they have glands. Glands, if they have, that means they are going to secrete something. Okay, they will secrete. So how is the structure? The cell contains vesicle, that means bag-like, packed with secretory material. Location where they are present in inner layer of the skin and etc. Inner layer of the skin, they have glands, that means, can you imagine where, what would they do? Yes, they secrete the sweat, oil, and mucus, etc. Okay, mucus is the secretion which is there inside our nose also. Okay, so understood. Glandular epithelium, gland. Gland means they would secrete something. So where they are present in the inner layer of the skin. And what is their function? As they secrete something, they would secrete the, see, they have the secretion of sweat or oil, which is called as sebum, and mucus. Okay. Then we have columnar epithelium. Again, as the name says, columnar, so column. So they appear like column, like tall cells. Upper free surface bears, that means your upper free surface have folds which are made up of these cells at the places of absorption. So they're tall, okay, and their upper free surfaces they have, so that the absorption would take place. So their function would be anything to absorb. Where they are present in the inner surface of the intestine and the alimentary canal. Alimentary canal, you know, it starts from the mouth till the anus. Inner surface of the intestine, so they have the absorption, so all the absorption of the nutrients when the food has to reach the small intestine. So that is why this columnar, the tall cells are being present. Function, secretion of the digestive juices and the absorption of nutrients. As I said, they are tall, they would help in absorbing faster. So columnar epithelium. So you have to remember each name, children, according as the name is, first of all. Then the structure, if you all know, you would be easily able to know their location and function. Then ciliated epithelium. Ciliated means cilia. Cilia means something which is moving. It has small hair, so it keeps on moving. So it has a structure on it which keeps on moving. So structure, it is upper free surface of the cells which bears minute hair-like processes because they keep on moving. Location, they are present in the inner surface of the respiratory canal. So you can see inner surface of the respiratory canal. Why? Because when we are breathing, a lot of other particles also keep on going in our body, which we cannot stop. So the cilia keeps on moving and it helps to clear that surface in the trachea. Okay, so that nothing gets choked up, the particles which are inhaling does not get choked up inside, and the cilia keeps on moving so that it goes on uh, clearing that passage. Okay, so function, pushes the mucus and air forward to keep the air passage free. They're also present in the inside of your nose, because the hair like projections. Okay, the hair like projections which are present. So what, whenever we are inhaling, suppose any particle gets inside your nose, what immediately what happens, you sneeze out. So it does not allow any unwanted particles to go inside through your respiratory canal. So it pushes the mucus and air forward to keep the air passage free. So they keep on moving. So that is ciliated epithelium. Then we have cuboidal epithelium. Again, as the name says, they are in the shape of cuboid. So cells are cuboidal. Where they are present, they will be little bit. The surface will be larger. So tubules of kidney, that is in the nephron, and salivary gland. What are the function? Reabsorption of the useful materials from the urine and the secretion of saliva. Their surface is quite large, so that is why it occurs. It helps in reabsorption of the useful materials, especially in the kidney, and that is from the urine. So urine, when it is formed, there are certain materials which were still useful, still the body keeps on absorbing it. So for that it requires this cuboidal epithelium and secretion of the saliva, because it is present in the salivary gland. So this was all about, we have studied about the epithelial tissue, the squamous epithelium, the stratified epithelium, the glandular epithelium, columnar epithelium, ciliated and cuboidal epithelium. Okay, we need to understand their location, structure and function accordingly. The next is the connective tissue. Now what do you mean by connective? As I said, connective means there has to be a connection. It proves as a connection between different bone to bone or muscle to bone, or are throughout the body. We had studied in the previous slide that blood is also a connective tissue, because it helps in transport of all the important materials throughout the body. It's not only about the useful materials, but also the waste materials are being thrown out of the body. Okay, so that is what the connective tissue does. So tissues which join different parts of the body are called as connective tissue. As I said, if I'm moving my hand, my muscle and bone has to be attached, otherwise my muscle would be somewhere else and the bone would be somewhere else. So that work is done by this connective tissue. Cells in this type of tissue are loosely arranged with a ground substance in the free spaces in between them. So that means if this is a tissue, the tissue is made up of cells, no? So in between there is some substance, so that is called as the ground substance. Okay, that is called as the ground substance. So this ground substance can be either, it can be solid, liquid like water, or it can be jelly like. So wherever it is present, this connective tissue, the function would be accordingly. So it can be that ground substance would be either solid, liquid, or it will be jelly like. Okay, so understood what is connective tissue. So you can see under the skin, that is skin and the muscles have to be attached, no, with something. So that work is done by the connective tissue. We are forming the ligament for the movement. Adipose tissue is nothing but the fats. Okay, the fat tissue it is called as. Then we have the cartilage, we have blood, and we have bone. So all these the connective tissues are present at all these, and these are the different types of rather connective tissues, and we have to learn their functions now. Again, depending upon their location, their structure, and they would have their function. So the first one is blood. Blood has erythrocytes, it has leukocytes, and it has platelets in the liquid plasma. So these are RBCs and these are WBCs, and these are the platelets. What they do? The platelets help in clotting the blood. This is the composition of the blood, children. Okay, this is the composition of the blood, where it is closed circulatory system. Why closed circulatory system? Because it flows inside a blood vessel. That is why a closed is a circulatory system. What is its function? Its function is to transport the oxygen, nutrients and hormones, and also waste materials. Okay, so blood, what is the composition rather of the blood? It is erythrocytes, leukocytes and platelets, which is present in the liquid plasma. And where is the location? Throughout the body, that is closed circulatory system, and its function is to transport oxygen, nutrients, hormones and waste. Then lymph. Now what is lymph? Now when this is a diagram which would make you all understand just a little detail, that when the blood enters these arteries, okay, when it is entering these arteries, as I said, it has RBCs, WBCs, okay, and the platelets. Because of the blood pressure, what happens? Their arteries and the veins connect through the capillary, isn't it? So when the blood enters these arteries, because of the blood pressure, some of the fluid is oozed out, means gets outside this capillary and enters these cells. Okay, these are the cells, these small you can see, these are the cells. So when they end, and these cells form the tissues, correct, this entire thing forms the tissues. So when these arteries from this blood rather, when the fluid gets oozed out, some of the fluid gets oozed out, it enters inside this tissues. So when it enters inside this tissue, it is called as, either you call it as tissue fluid because it is entering inside the fluid, or it is called as your lymph. Okay, it is called as lymph. Now this lymph, children, just for an extra information I'm saying, lymph does not have the RBCs, no RBCs, but it has the WPCs. That is why this lymph would not appear red in color, but it would be colorless. And as it has the WBCs, that as it has the WBCs, it would help us in protection. Okay, it would help in the protection. So as your blood helps in, is a part of the circulatory system, even your lymph is a part of the circulatory system. So it, as it contains the WBCs, what it is used, its function is to help us protect from the infections. Okay, so when I'll repeat again, when the blood is entering these arteries, and it is through the arteries, and it is going to the capillaries, when it reaches the capillaries, what happens? Due to the blood pressure, some of the fluid gets oozed out into the tissues. That is why it is called as tissue fluid or the lymph. This tissue fluid or the lymph would contain the RBCs and some of the proteins. Okay, and then it would enter the lymphatic system. So that is why rather it would enter into a lymphatic capillary. So it is called as the lymph. Again, while moving, so all the fluid, that is all the lymph, would it not get entered into the lymph, but again some of it would get reabsorbed into the blood. Again it becomes a it will get reabsorbed into the veins. So again it will be a part of the circulatory system. Okay, that becomes the deoxygenated blood which is taken to the heart. So understood what is lymph? Lymph is nothing but the tissue fluid which enters through from the capillary, that is it oozes out from the capillary and enters the tissues. Because it enters the tissues, it is also called as tissue fluid, and because it contains the WBCs and no RBCs, it helps us to protect the body from different infections. So structure, fluid oozed out of the blood capillaries which contains leukocytes and the liquid ground substance. Location, it is present all around the cells in the body, because obviously in our entire body cells require protection. Function, protection of body from infections. Why I said? Because it contains the WBCs, that is the leukocytes. Then we have areolar tissue. Now areolar tissue, between the skin and the muscles you have this areolar tissues present, because it helps in the protection. So for example I gave, it is present between the skin and the muscles. There is a tissue present which helps in the protection, and it is obviously a connective tissue, so it helps in the connection. It also is present in certain internal organs, so that it helps in providing the protection or the connection of it. So different types of cells loosely arranged and supported by a jelly like ground substance and elastic fibers, very important, elastic fibers. Where they are present, they are present between the skin and the muscles and around the blood vessels. So they support the internal organ. As it is a connection between them, they will support for the internal organ. For example, if I have to say that, if I give you some bricks and I ask you all to arrange them, you would arrange them, isn't it? You have arranged them nicely and built a small wall. But I come and I kick the wall, kick your bricks. What would happen? It immediately will fall, isn't it? What would make them strong? What would make your wall strong? Yes, if I provide you some cement. So if I provide you with some cement, your wall would be rigid enough. So this areolar tissue, or this connective tissues rather, help in providing this firmness to the body. Okay, you understood what is an areolar tissue? So very important. If this example, you will understand that it is present between the skin and the muscles. Then we have adipose tissue. Whenever the word come adipose, now imagine that it fat. Okay. So we have fats over our under our skin. So this helps in cushioning. Okay, fats means it helps in the cushion for the different internal organs which are present, and obviously it is present also below the skin. So you must have seen that the people who are little fatter, they have more fats, no, fat, or say obese, I would say, they have more weight or they are overweight, so they have more of fat tissues as adipose tissue, so they don't feel much cold, rather they feel more hotter as compared to a person who is skinny. It is because of this adipose tissue, because it kind of gives an insulation to the body. So how is this structure? Structure is filled with fat droplets and it is jelly-like ground substance. Ground substance, as I hope you remember what I said, if this is a tissue, the cells are made in between whatever is there, that is your ground substance. Okay. So the cells are embedded inside this tissue, but with the help of in this matrix. It is called as actually a matrix. Okay, the ground substance. So it can be either, it can be water, you remember, no, or jelly like, or it can be even solid. Okay, the structure of cells filled with fat droplets, jelly like ground substance, location below the skin and around the internal organs, because it is fat, no, it gives a cushion to it. Function, insulation, as I said, supply of energy and storage of the fats. So the people who are fat, it is not good that they would not feel cold and feel hot. I'm just giving an example of how the insulation works in case of the adipose tissue. Okay. Then we have cartilage. Cartilage, the structure is cell supported by the fibrous, flexible jelly-like ground substance. That means it can move. So where they are present, nose. If you move your nose, you can move your nose. So that is a cartilage which is present. You can move your ear. That is a cartilage present. Okay, so it is flexible and it is fibrous. The location, nose, ear, larynx, that is your voice box, and trachea. Then function, lubricates the surface of bone. So these are the two bones, in between you will have the cartilage, so it will give the lubrication so that your bones don't worn out. Otherwise it will keep on, imagine how you have to put oil between your doors when they start making noise. The same way the cartilage is there, though, so the bones don't get rubbed against each other, kind of a friction. So this cartilage helps in giving the support and also the shape to the organs. Then we have bones. Bones, we all know that the bones, obviously they help in what? They help in giving the entire structure framework to our body. So osteocytes are embedded in this small solid ground substance which are made up of calcium and phosphate. So location, the entire skeleton. What is function? It supports and protects the different organs which helps in the movements. Other than bone, we will be like a muscle ball only. There will be no movement. Imagine a muscle ball, no? Imagine a bean bag. There are no bones, so it will be lying down like that only. Because of these bones, you have the proper support. You have the support for the entire muscle, and obviously you can even move your hand and legs because of the bones, and it is a protection. Your rib cage, remember, no? Your rib cage, your heart is being protected by this rib cage, and the lungs. So these are nothing but these are the bones which form the skeleton. Okay. Then next we have tendons. Tendons are those which are again fibrous, strong and less elastic. That means they do not move. So where they are present at the joints. They join. But what they join? They join the muscle to the bone. Remember, tendons join muscle to the bones. This is the muscle. This is the bone. So this tendon is being joined. So that is quite. It is not much freely moving, but yes, little less elastic. But it is fibrous and it is strong. You can see here in your hand, this is the bone, this is the tendon, and this is the muscle. So this tendon attaches the bone and the muscle. Remember, tendon attaches bone to the muscles, or you can say muscle to the bones. And the last one is the ligaments. Ligaments are strong and highly flexible. What is the tendons were? Tendons were less elastic. Okay, the difference. They are also present at the joint, but what is the function? They join bone to each other. That means bone to bones. So you can see here, bone to bone. This is the ligament which joins this bone to bone. This is in the knee. They join the bone to bone. So tendons join muscle to bone, correct? Whereas ligaments join bone to bone. Got it?